So look, it's more than likely the Spurs are going to draft Dylan Harper at number 2. What is he going to bring to the San Antonio Spurs?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. And thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever we get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app, YouTube. You know what to do. By the way, you go to the Locked On Spurs YouTube page, leave a comment. Maybe we'll read it in a future episode of Locked On Spurs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. You want to do that ASAP. What are we talking about tonight? Look, barring any mother of all gifts that the Spurs could get in a trade-up package offered to them, the Spurs are likely going to keep number 2. That's the prevailing thought. So we're going to go with that. Again, barring some sort of knock them off their feet deal, number 2 is going to stay in San Antonio hands. And then more than likely, it'll be Dylan Harper out of Rutgers. So with that notion, what will he bring to the Spurs next season? What is his ceiling? Is he going to be a starter? What's going to happen once the Spurs select him? We're going to get into that. What are the scouting reports to say? And so much more. Yeah, we're bringing this up because the draft is tomorrow. The draft is tomorrow, everybody. So we're getting you ready for the guy they're likely going to pick. We're going to try something new here on Locked On Spurs. I've never done this. Usually when we have guests that can't do videos, we have an audio-only show. I think y'all know that, right? Because, it just feels weird, right? But I'm going to try something today. Look, it's the offseason experimental phase here on Locked On Spurs. So we're just going to bring in our audio guest. You know me, love him. He's Casey Vieira. He's my good friend. Follow him on X at Casey_Vieira with that pretty cool looking headshot there. What was that at?
Right.
Is that from the Alamo Dome?
Yeah, that was the Final Four. It was just a couple months ago.
Oh yeah, look at that, man.
The only reason that's the only reason I show up to work. Shameless photo ops and headshots and things like that.
Yeah.
Stuff that I could post on the gram or use as a I don't know, an avatar for Locked On.
There you go.
There we go. That's the reason I do it. And it looks better. That picture right there is more aesthetically pleasing than what my house looks like right now. Running, not cleaning up entirely, chasing an 18-month-old around. So
yeah, there's that.
Have at it, America.
Exactly. Yeah. I gotta get in the habit of doing that. Going to events. At the draft tomorrow or the NBA draft, whatever it is, and take more photos like that. I always kind of drop the ball on that.
I was the same boat, and that only started for me when after I had a kid, and I was like, You know what? Maybe I want to model myself and one day show them cool things that I did with my life.
Yeah,
could mean something, could mean nothing.
Dad was at the Final Four back in the day. No way, I don't believe it.
Photo. How about that?
Yeah, look at that, Junior. All right,
exactly.
Yeah, all right, Casey. Well, glad to have you back. Look, we'll take an audio time segment out of you. We definitely appreciate your input here on Locked On Spurs. A lot of fans do as well. So let's go to dive into it too. Look, tomorrow night it's the NBA draft. Spurs got number 2. They got number 14, but more on that later this week. We're going to focus on number 2. And the prevailing thought, everybody's saying the Spurs are going to keep number 2. So we're going to go with that. And again, barring some sort of deal that knocks them off their feet, is more than likely they will draft Dylan Harper. I don't know. I don't see the Mavericks doing a 180. I mean, if you really think about it, Harper is the player they need, not Flag. But that's the only other wild card I could think of that can trip this up. But nevertheless, we're going to go with it, Dylan Harper. So when the Spurs announced his name, he puts in that draft cap. Casey, what do you think the immediate impact he's going to bring to the San Antonio Spurs?
I think the immediate impact that he's going to bring to this Spurs team is just an aspect of versatility that helps everyone further their impact on the floor. If that makes any sense. I'm sure there's probably a more eloquent way of putting that, but I think getting a guy like Harper in there, it allows someone like Stephon Castle What we're going to see a lot, presumably, if it goes the way that it does, is that we're going to see a lot of Stephon Castle playing at the small forward spot, which is not foreign because Danny Hurley had him playing basically 4 of the 5 positions on the floor while at UConn anyways. So you're going to see things like that. You're going to see guys like Devin Vassell, and it happened a little bit more last year once De'Aaron Fox got settled in and with a healthy Victor. You're going to see guys like Devin Vassell, if he is here, of course, kind of just fall into the role which he's more suitable being, as a guy who just goes out there and can just chuck, and you're not entirely living and dying by it, but just going out there, letting him be him and letting him take advantage of the offensive end and things like that. And just the guy you're hoping in his spot can facilitate. You're not, thankfully, he's falling into a situation, Harper is, that he's not gonna, I don't want to say not gonna be asked a ton, but he's in a spot where he's probably going to be asked to be the 4th option on this team.
Yeah.
And there's very little pressure on him to do that, very little urgency on him to do that right now. And it should theoretically work out, at least on paper, with what he needs as a 19-year-old coming into this league and what the Spurs are lining up for now. Yeah.
Yeah. Right off the bat, you hit it on the nail to start. Right there, when you mentioned he's 19 years old, he's young, so he'll definitely have his ample opportunity to gel and have the Spurs mold him into the quality player they need him for the long haul. And at least for the last, it feels like we're in the last portions of the rebuild. And I think Harper will help in that department as far as the team lasting longer through the rebuild, and that what he brings. So what does he bring? Well, you look at what he did at Rutgers, Casey. He's great within the 3-point line. He's an excellent 2-point shooter. Can get to the rim, can knock down those mid-range shots. So we like that. You mentioned his age, 19 years old. We'll take that, check that box as well. You look at him, what he averaged last season at Rutgers, 29 games. He played nearly 33 minutes, 19.4 points per game, 1.4 steals, and had 4 assists, 4.6 rebounds. I want to highlight that. I think that doesn't get enough attention there. He's actually a pretty good rebounder because at his position, consider he's measures at 6.75. And I think that rebounding edge is going to be key for the Spurs next season. And 48% field goal per shooting, but we got to go to some of the cons, though. He's not a great 3-point shooter, and that's something the Spurs desperately need, Casey.
Mm-hmm. And listen, if we're being diplomatic, though, how many rookies come into the league and they are
that's true
3-point shooters? You know what I mean? And I think what we've continued to learn is that there's a level of patience that this team has right now going forward, that while he may not entirely fall into his skill set of what it could be on after this rookie season, or what it is, we've known that the Spurs, there's not a sense of urgency with them, because really, in the grand scheme of things, what they're anticipating out of him is far from paramount from what they're anticipating as a whole with all these guys in terms of where the focus is going to be. I was going to say he's not a priority, but that's way too condescending of a sense of a term, and just not true for the number 2 pick in the draft. But when it comes to the end losses, the end goal, the win losses of what comes to it, I don't think they're going to be putting a ton of stock into what Harper does, so to speak, in the context that I don't think they're going to rush the development, just kind of like everyone else, and just kind of like what we've seen with Victor and Castle. They're just kind of taking it day by day, and all the cliches that we've been hearing for however many years now. But it's just kind of true of what it is. They're patient right now. They're being patient. They've continued to be patient, and there will be exactly that once again to let Dylan fall into what he's being asked to do and figure these things out.
Yeah. I mentioned how he is excellent within the 3-point line. I was looking at the stat here. He shot 70% on 170 attempts at the rim, and he assisted on 17.6. Oh, no, he was assisted on that 17.6% of the time. So he definitely can finish either on his own or with a pass from a teammate. So that's good there. You look at some of the other scouting reports here. They mentioned how good body control he has, that he has a big frame for his position, and that he can get to his spots. He can create space and thus make that offense click for the Spurs next season. However, you look at, again, we got to be fair here. One of the knocks on him, he's not that great of a defensive player. And the Spurs, at times, at least in the last few years, defense has been an issue. Now, it got better last season. To start last season, remember that, Casey? The Spurs were like top 5, top 10 defenses.
Yeah.
And then that fell apart quickly. They were just circling the bottom of the drain. So there's that. Are you worried about the defense, or is that one of the things like, hey, he'll get it once he gets to the league?
No, because it's just kind of like the same thing with the shooting. Most rookies aren't elite defenders when they come in. Stephon Castle is an outlier.
Yeah.
Most rookies, when they come in, they're not known that that's another aspect of things where they figure it out along the way. So no, I'm not particularly concerned about that. And the other thing too is just you get by. I don't want to say you throw metrics out the window, but to a certain extent, you throw defensive metrics out the window when you have everyone who can funnel their way to the basket to face Victor at the rim. And not that there's a conscious effort to maybe not funnel. What's a better word? I guess there's the security blanket that's there of Victor at the rim that, I think if you're putting a guy out there who's a little bit more of a defensive liability, you do have Victor out there playing safety who can help you out. And that will always help regardless of who it is. So no, I mean, you of course want to see a competent defensive player, but the thing that's going for him is, I mean, he's, like you said, you listed the measurables right there. He's 6'6", going to be probably closer to 200 pounds when the season comes to a close.
Absolutely.
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I'm not worried as well. Although that is one of the knocks on most scouting reports. But if you dive deeper into some of the numbers, you might kind of scratch your head thinking like, okay, what are they seeing? Like, are they not seeing something? Like, am I missing something here? Because you look at what he did at 1.4 steals per game last season at Rutgers. He had a steal percentage of 2.6. And some scouting reports say he is a very good strong side defender, that he can use his big frame handling drivers going at him on the defensive end. But I think they're just saying like overall, if that's still kind of a work in progress for him. But at least I know, and we know, and now everybody knows that there is some trajectory going up for him in that department. Just look ahead. I mean, can we say he has the potential to be a franchise guard for the San Antonio Spurs, a la maybe Dame and CJ McCollum back in the day? You think we're there? You think we can get to that point with Castle and Harper? And you got to throw in Fox too. That
I was going to say, let's not forget the guy that they traded for just a few months ago. I'm going by what I'm told, and everything I've been told up to this point is that this is a guy who's on the trajectory to be an all-star caliber player in this league, and understandably the number 2 pick in the draft. I have never seen Dylan Harper play in person.
Yeah.
I do not know Dylan Harper personally. I don't know Ron Harper personally.
Yeah.
I'm
shocked you don't.
Yeah. I have no tie to the Harper family whatsoever. My main interaction with Ron Harper was watching him play for the Bulls in the 90s. That was it.
Yeah.
I have never met Ron Harper. I'm just letting it be known I'm going by primarily what the outside tells me. And if the outside tells me that this is a guy who is beyond the number 2, worthy of the number 2 pick, is a guy who is going to be a impressive functional player, not only for himself, but just in the system as a whole. I like my chances with that. I like my chances. Of course, then there's still a bunch of questions we'll figure out along the way. Where once he gets to San Antonio, of course, the one that just comes about always with a lot of these young guys is whether or not they fit with Victor, because Victor is just such a anomaly himself. And so much of these past 2 years have just been a mix and match, and trying to figure out what skill sets work with who, and vice versa. But back to the overriding point, I like my chances that better that Dylan Harper is going to be a more than productive player in this league.
He is Casey Vieira. Make sure to follow him on X at Casey_Vieira. Do that right now. We're not done talking about Dylan Harper. The more than likely, it is kind of obvious, soon to be San Antonio Spur in just a few hours. Seriously, in a few hours. But we're not done with him. We'll still talk about Harper. We're going to look at how do we see him continuing to fit, or just will fit in San Antonio. What could his ceiling be? And we got to ask that question. Is there an issue in San Antonio? There's too many guards. We're going to be talking about that with Casey Vieira coming up next right here on Locked On Spurs. I want to talk about Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, hey, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. You can stop managing your money and start building wealth. You have easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared accounts. You got all-in-one convenience instead of juggling a lot of apps. You can do all what you need financially by using the Monarch Money app. Track spending and finances. And you get surprising insights. You'll see just how much you spend on certain things. And maybe that might make you rethink how you're spending. In other words, budget smarter. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. I want to talk about open phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. The last time you had an urgent need, maybe a plumber or maybe just a service provider, well, that person didn't answer. You probably didn't wait, right? Yeah, probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app. Shared inbox features is the game changer. Your team can jump on into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And you get an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, answering common questions, captures, so you'll never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs, joined by Casey Vieira. He's like the voice from above right now. Hey, Casey, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Can you just say this kind of slowly with a little bit of nerdiness? Can you say, Luke, the force will be with you always?
Okay. Luke. Well, what shouldn't I say, Jeff?
Okay, say Jeff. Yeah, say Jeff. Yeah.
Jeff. The force will be with you always.
See, just like Obi-Wan Kenobi did when Luke Skywalker was attacking the Death Star. See, I love it. See,
sure.
There are some nerd out moments of having somebody just do audio only, but nevertheless, he is Casey Vieira, not Obi-Wan Kenobi. Make sure to follow him on X at Casey_Vieira. We are talking about Dylan Harper and what he will bring to the Spurs next season, because let's face it, that's likely he'll be the #2 pick in just a few hours. So let's talk about what we kind of touched on at the last segment, which was the logjam. Harper, Fox, Castle. They're like the same guy, the same position. Yes, they have different offerings on the court on both sides, but if you kind of whittle it down, it's like Castle and another Castle, and then there's Fox. Do you think that's going to be an issue?
No, because I don't think Castle and Harper are that similar of players, in my opinion. I do think Harper. Well, hold on. Let me hit pause, because
okay, go ahead.
I think I get what you're getting at, because I don't think they're similar players. They're similar for lack of a better term, flaws in their game can be detrimental at times, and that is the lack of shooting. So, assuming Steph Castle doesn't make an incremental leap this year, if we're seeing something, I think he'll be improved, but I'm not anticipating him going out there and being Reggie Miller on October 5th, whenever the season opens in October. I'm not. I think having both of them on the floor at the same time at times might present that issue. I could see that. I think there's an aspect of having two guys that young in Castle and Harper, first and second year guys very early into their career. That's it. Being put in a situation, kind of a 3-guard rotation like that, can be challenging for veterans, let alone guys who have been in the league for a cup of coffee. I know Castle, of course, that's a pretty good cup of coffee, but it still has not been in the league very long. And then when you factor in the Fox aspect of side of things, and we know he's not going anywhere with it. But just kind of, I think it just pivots back to the point of what I was saying before, though, is that I don't think there will be a sense of urgency for them to figure that out. Harper and the Harper and Castle part of it, I think it will take time. I could see a world where Dylan Harper is not the starting 2-guard on opening night. I could see that. And I think that's just a matter of trying to figure out that fit along the way. So going back to the idea of Fox, Castle, and Castle in quotes, like you were saying. I think there is an element of truth to that. I think there is, but I don't think that's a long-term issue that they're going to come across. I think that's an issue of the present that they might face. I don't think that's an issue that's a long-term thing. But then on the other side of things, though, is that it might not be the worst thing in the world if you do split them up at times, right? Because then you can stagger things a little bit, stagger that point guard, and right now, the way it looks like, that's kind of what it's going to be, right? It's that this is, in terms of the point guard spot, that's what they're going to roll with. They have 3 guys that might be in the starting lineup that could be their point guard, and that could be a scenario where they kind of ride with that the entire season. Maybe bring Blake Wesley back just for depth, on some of those nights where you need to dig into your 12th man because of injury or whatnot. But no, I think there's a valid point what you're saying with the kind of repetitiveness of the two.
Yeah, I do maybe foresee some clunkiness to start the season. I think they're going to figure it out. Yeah, I think you probably anticipate fans pulling their hair out like, why are you starting Castle and I'm making this up, Fox together? It doesn't work. Somebody's got to move, or why is Harrison Barnes out there? You got to throw in Harper. Let's have that lineup. I think you're going to see that to start the season, but eventually all things will settle down. And look, he is the rookie, and if something has to give, he will go to the bench. You ain't going to bench Harrison Barnes for a rookie unless Barnes is on board and, maybe he sees the bigger picture a la Manu Ginobili. But, then there's Vassell. Is he going to be the odd man out? Let's just say Harper just does a bang-up job coming off that bench and just really, really pushes the Spurs on both ends of the court. The numbers don't lie, the plus-minus numbers, the on-off numbers, whatever it is. It feels like maybe Vassell could be the odd man out in this situation.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there's a world, but I don't think we're going to come to that this year. I don't. But in many respects, Vassell's kind of felt like the odd man out for a little while, right?
Right.
Think about what we just, with this Kevin Durant thing, Vassell has been the first one to go.
Well, yeah.
And
sure.
Everyone's been talking about Vassell in the past tense for a month now. So I could see a world where that kind of comes about again. But in the short term, I think you're probably looking at Vassell as a guy who's in that starting 5 on opening night, because I don't think opening night, I don't think they're going to start Harper.
Yeah, me either.
I think it's going to be I think it's probably going to be Fox Castle, Vassell.
Barnes.
See, I was going to say Sohan over Barnes.
See, I was going to go with Barnes because I think you need some sort of stability out there, veteran presence.
But the thing is, like,
But that's the thing. I didn't mean to cut you off, but why do we keep on saying that? Freaking
year 4.
Vassell. Yeah, so I'm saying Vassell is what, year 6, year 7?
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta stop. I think we all gotta stop thinking that these are kids.
No.
And technically by age, they're young, but they're not by NBA standards.
We just did an episode a few weeks ago a few days ago talking about Jeremy Sohan's second extension. Like, this is not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think like you said, I think we're past the point of you got to leave a veteran in there just for even a veteran in there because it's just not like, kids got to grow up at some point.
Yeah, you got to check out the training wheels at one point.
Right. I think as a result, as a byproduct of that, I think that's why we'll see him in the starting lineup, Jeremy. But you know what? Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, exactly. He is Casey Vieira. Make sure to follow him on X at Casey_Vieira. When we get back, we're going to look at his ceiling. What could Dylan Harper's ceiling be? We already answered the other question you see on your screen right now. Will he be a starter in his rookie year? Maybe not to start. I know Casey mentioned that. I think eventually he will. I think as early as the end of next season, but we'll see if that happens. All right, we're going to do that and more right here on Locked On Spurs with Casey Vieira. Hey, but first I want to talk about FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, right? Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get it on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Look, if you've been using FanDuel, you know how to be able to track all your favorite matchups, how the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. That's why you got to jump on FanDuel right now. It's easy to use, fast payouts, makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're a part of the action. Due to FanDuel, your customers can just bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs, joined by Casey Vieira. Make sure to follow my next at Casey_Vieira. Hey, Casey, the streets are saying, or at least they're speaking right now, that you might be on Locked On Spurs after draft night is over. I think that's true.
I think that's tentatively the plan, at least for one night.
Yeah. Casey will be with me at the Spurs practice facility on draft night, and we'll be able to.
At least that night.
At least that night, yeah. Hopefully, we'll get everything sorted out and do a video from the Victory Capital Performance Center. There you go, where the Spurs practice. Unlike last year, everyone knows it. So, Vinny Vincetta, my colleague at Ken's 5 and Casey's former colleague, we would always do post game, whether audio or video. It would be me and Vinny, right? Well, last year, Vinny came prepared, Casey. I mean, he brought the lights, he brought the camera, he brought the mics. He was giving me a couple of pointers, about how to handle a live shot, all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're recording. It's a damn good show. Vinny drives back home. I see he's been calling me for the last hour, and I've been missing his calls. And I go, "Hey, Vinny, what's up?" He says, "Oops, we had a malfunction." He set the camera to like infinite zoom, and it was just on my cheek the whole time.
Really?
He did.
He never told me that.
Yeah. It was like I remember he called me. He goes, I don't know what happened, but the camera was just zoomed in on your like one half of your face, and he tried to fix it, and he just couldn't. So it ended up being an audio show. So that was hopefully, Casey, that doesn't happen to us.
By the sound of it, I can understand why he didn't tell me that.
But hopefully, Casey, we don't do that. We don't have that issue this Wednesday night.
That's a very Vinny. I love him. He's family. He's very much, and No, I'll say it because I feel like he would
Yeah.
appreciate the nickname, so I wanted to break it to him first. But I feel like he's very much San Antonio's Larry David. Like he can, there's so many situations that could
Yeah.
just be like applicable, like you'd see on that show that Vinny
Yeah.
would just like end up in.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Exactly.
Yeah, he had one of those the other. I won't say what the situation was,
Okay.
but I saw Vinny over the weekend, and he was
Yeah.
coming from a situation that was
Very Larry David.
very Larry David.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
only you, Vin Dog.
Only
you.
you, Ben Dog. Yeah. Vinny, unfortunately, would not be able to join me this year. He's will be in studio at Ken's 5. So Casey's going to be filling in for him with me from the Victory Tap Performance Center after the long freaking wait.
Mhm.
Lady.
I haven't done since they opened the
Yeah.
performance center. I haven't done a draft every night. I had just been in studio.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Right. I haven't
Yeah.
done a draft night from
Yeah.
Hickory Capital, so this will be a first for me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a general idea of what to expect, but
well, the media room was, I'm not gonna say it's small, but it can get a little crowded in there. But hey, they give you free drinks and some snacks, so there's that. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, it's a win already. Yeah, and then you see everybody just either on their phones or just doing chit chat. And the moment they let us upstairs, we're like, yes, let's get this over with.
Right.
You go upstairs. So long night ahead, but so heads. No, what we're trying to get at is heads up. The next. Well, I guess Thursday's episode might be a little late, considering by the time they finish, by the time we get out, by the time we record, by the time Casey sets up, it might be a little late. So heads up on that, everybody. All right, let's go wrap up our talk about Dylan Harper, the presumed number 2 pick. And by the way, Casey, I saw that he's considered the number 1 point or guard, I should say, just guard among all mocks. So he is a consistent.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, when the top pick is a forward and you're the second best player, it's kind of by default. But
yeah, exactly. All right, so let's wrap it up and just ask a quick question here. What do you think his ceiling is? I got him as an all-star. What do you got him as?
Yeah, me too.
Get him as an all-star. Okay,
I think so. I think the trendy kind of player comp right now is Cade Cunningham, and based off all the research I've done, I think that's very apropos. But it'll be interesting because if he's as ball dominant as Cade is, it'll be interesting, that dynamic in the long run, how that would work with De'Aaron Fox.
Right.
Because Cade is spectacular, but he's spectacular because he needs the ball in his hands to do the things that he does.
Right.
And kind of by default, he's never really had, and you might see a little bit more next year when Jaden Ivey gets back, but he hasn't really had a guy who's put himself in a position where he can play, regularly off the ball. And so if you're looking at kind of like the comp like that, and it's very, basic in a vacuum for whatever you want to phrase it as, I think that part will be interesting to see how that
will be. The wild card in all this, and why he probably won't be an all-star, is that the Spurs could eventually have too many all-stars, and by too many I mean 2, Wemby and Castle.
I mean
that and then there's only one ball. Fox gets in the mix too if he balls out, so it may not be enough touches for him. So I think that could be a huge obstacle for Harper reaching all-star status. And I think it's legit. It's a legit obstacle. The Spurs could have multiple all-stars in the future.
I mean, it's kind of on brand for kind of the way things have always been with the Spurs, because what do people say all the time, that Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker's resumes are not as individual players are often kind of looked at as not shrugged off, but there's always kind of an aspect when you look at their resumes on the grand scheme of things as individual players, what could have been if they weren't in, per se, the Spurs system in a role of sacrifice for the betterment of the team. And hey, you know what? I mean, if history repeats itself, we've seen this book before,
Yep.
And all it ends well for the Spurs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Spurs are definitely scouting, drafting right, developing players. It's a good thing, Spurs fans. So it's a good thing. And if he never becomes an all-star, or at least he has his mural already before he became an NBA player, Casey. So he has his mural already. Leave it to San Antonio to give Harper a mural before he's even in the NBA.
Where is it?
It's on the south side at Rudy's.
It's at I know the answer.
Yeah, it's at Rudy's. Yeah.
Where else?
They did that for Wemby. Remember that one year? Like it was like months in advance, and they were get him his mural, put him in the uniform.
Yeah. They had him doing that when him versus Scoot Henderson, when that was a thing.
Hey, whatever happened to Scoot? Man, he's just not gonna pan out, is he?
Not my place to say, but there were many of lockdowns that we did hypothesizing what the world would look like with Scoot Henderson as opposed to Wemby.
Imagine how far back in the rebuild they are right now if Portland had won that draft. Good Lord.
Listen, man.
The basketball gods smiled on San Antonio.
If we're you want to shed if you want to shed the silver and blue Fiesta color goggles here for a minute, Portland is not, from a wins and loss standpoint, Portland and the Spurs are not too far off right now. So, if not exactly San Antonio's place to be, flying the whole flag because they have Wemby, if we're looking at a wins and losses aspect.
Absolutely. He is Casey Vieira. Make sure to follow him on X at Casey_Vieira. Do that right now. And again, this won't be the last time you hear from Casey this week. You will be able to see and hear him later on this week as he'll be joining me from the Victory Capital Performance Center after the long night of waiting to talk to GM Brian Wright and what the Spurs did at the NBA draft. So heads up on that. So in advance, Casey, thanks for hanging out with me this Wednesday night. So appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Everybody else, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Make sure to follow us on X at Locked On Spurs. Where else you go to? YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Cansify Plus app. You know what to do. Go subscribe ASAP and leave a comment at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. We'll be back tomorrow. I believe Rudy Campos is going to be joining us as we get you ready for draft day. Yeah, so that should be an exciting episode. So for Casey Vieira, no, not yet, not quite yet. One more thing I got to let y'all know about. Locked On. Hang on. Locked On Mock Draft. Yeah, make sure your second listen is 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft. It's a 5-episode series with the most comprehensive NBA draft analysis from NBA experts to college experts, NBA draft experts. Find the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft on NBA Big Board and Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, now we can do it. So for Casey Vieira, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.